Hello, sixth grade Panthers. This is Miss Weesey. Hey, I wanted to go over a little bit with you guys how to solve proportions. This is just going to be something for you to use as a resource, right? So that you can reference it if you need it, if you need a little bit of a reminder on how to set these up. And there's a couple example problems we're going to go through. So let's go ahead and get started. So our example number 1 says it costs $10 for 5 pizzas. How much would it cost for 25 pizzas? So I can solve this problem using the Tic Tac Toe method. So if you see, I already have a Tic Tac Toe board right here. And we're going to talk about how you set that up. So when you see the orange right here, that's these categories right here. So I draw my Tic Tac Toe diagram. Also, you can call it a hashtag if you want to. The U is for the units or the categories that are given to me in my problem. The K is for what I actually know in my problem. This is what's in my word problem, right? The DK is what I don't know yet, and that is where my question is, right? So when I'm looking for my DK, I'm going to look at what does my question ask me? What is missing and what does it give me to go by, right? So our second part we're going to look at is going to be identifying the 2 categories or units that are used in that word problem, right? So that we can label our tic-tac-toe. I already have it labeled for you, but when we go up to the top, we're going to look. Here I have 10, right? That's money. That's cost. $10 for 5 pizzas. So identify what I know, and I come over here. All right, so it costs $10 to get 5 pizzas. That's what I know. I'm going to write that in my tic-tac-toe. All right, the next step I'm going to look at is my question. So when I go up to my question, it asks me how much would it cost for 25 pizzas. So I look at what the question is asking me. This question is asking me for the cost, right? So I'm looking for the cost. That's right there for 25 pizzas. Since I don't know the cost, I'm just going to put an X in that spot. So I'm going to use X for the cost, and then be sure you make sure you place it on the right line. I got to put this with my cost right here, right? Because I want to know how much does it cost for 25 of those pizzas. So make sure you put your 25 with the pizzas because that's what it needs to go with. All right, so let's move on to the next slide. So identifying the correct proportion. Sometimes we'll have a problem that says, okay, find the correct proportion for this problem. So now that we've identified this information, we can identify which one's correct when we're given the problem. So what we just created in this right here is a proportion. So you can see it right here. This one is written exactly like what we have in our tic-tac-toe. The 10 is in the numerator, the 5 is in the denominator. We go over to the next section, the X is in the numerator, and the 25 is in the denominator. All right, that's just like our tic-tac-toe. It doesn't always have to be written like that. And sometimes it won't be. So when we're looking for the correct one, it could be any number of examples they give us, but there's one thing that we need to always pay attention to, right? Make sure the categories are in the correct space. And one way to check it is to say, okay, what would I do first to solve this problem? Well, when I look at solving this problem, the first thing I'm going to do is right here. I'm going to multiply that 10 times that 25. If I have a proportion that does not put these numbers in a space that I can multiply those across, then I cannot say that that's a correct proportion. So when we look over here at our examples, we've got, yep, there are 10 times 25. Our next one, if we cross multiplied, would be 10 times 25, leaving 5 as our little lonely guy over here. That's our lonely number. The next one down here, this is a correct proportion also. You look at it, it would have you multiply 25 times 10. That's the same process. And we still have our lonely 5 over here, right? Even the one at the bottom, when you look at it, it has you multiplying 10 times the 25. So this one is a correct proportion also. We still have our little lonely guy, our lonely 5 hanging out over here. All right, so you've got to make sure to be a correct proportion, it needs to have the correct process. So if we did our hashtag right, if we did our tic-tac-toe correctly, it's going to work this way, all right? So this one right here, this example, make sure you know this proportion is not correct. When you look at the process you would do to solve this, the first step I would take is my cross multiplication. It has me cross multiplying 10 times 5. That's not what I have set up over here. That is not going to match what my question is asking me for. All right. So now we're just going to skip to the next page and look at just simply solving the equation. Right. We're going to cross multiply. So that's going to put that 10 times the 25 like we said on the other page. Then we're going to divide by the lonely number. So that's our guy that's hanging out all here by himself. Right? Our poor little 5 is all alone and he needs a partner. So we're going to have to divide by 5. So first step, cross multiply. Second step, divide by the lonely guy. Right? So this is what would end up looking like. We got 10 times 25 equals 250. All right? We don't always have to use the whole decimal if it's a whole number. So I can just say 10. So 250, now I got my 250. I'm going to divide it by my lonely number. So 250 divided by 5 is going to give me 50. Then I have to remind myself, okay, I was answering a question about cost. So my answer would be X is $50. So remember, we're finding the cost for 25 pizzas. So our answer would be written as $50. It costs $50 for 25 pizzas would be our correct answer. So let's look at one more example just real quick so that you guys can kind of get the hang of what we're doing, okay? So it takes Devin 3 hours to drive 160 miles. How many miles will he travel if he drives for 12 hours? So first I'm going to look at my categories. I have hours and miles. So that's already over here for you in your Tic Tac Toe board. I've got hours, I've got miles. What I know is these two numbers right here. 3 hours to drive 160 miles. So when I come over here, my 3 is going to need to go with the hours. So that's going to be up there in my numerator. My 160 is going to need to go where the miles are. So now I have 3 hours to drive 160 miles. I'm going to go back over to my question now because what I don't know is what is going to be in my question. So how many miles will he travel if he drives for 12 hours? So if it's asking me how many miles, then that's what I do not know. So I'm going to have to put my X right there on the miles. Got to line them up. So my other number for hours needs to go with my hours. So here's my 12 hours. All right, so now all I've got to do is follow my steps. Cross multiply 160 times 12, right? Remember, when you're looking at this, you can pause it, you can stop it, anything you need to do to make sure you're understanding and getting what we're talking about, okay? You have control over what happens with this video. You can stop it, you can pause it, you can do whatever you need to do. All right, so we did my 160 times 12. Now we're going to divide by 3. So got to divide by my lonely number. That's my second step when I'm solving. So it's going to end up looking like this. 160 times 12. So once I figure that out, I end up with 1,920. After that, then comes my lonely guy. I got to divide by 3. So 1,920 divided by 3 gives me 640. Then I go back and say, okay, so X is 640, and I was looking for miles. So 640 miles is my answer. So Devin will travel 640 miles in 12 hours. So when you're setting these up, make sure if you need to, you can use this tic-tac-toe board. It's going to help you organize your ideas, and it'll help you put everything in the right place. If you have any questions, you can ask Ms. Casanova or myself. And hopefully you guys will have a wonderful rest of the day and rest of the week and a good holiday on Friday. I will talk to you guys later. Thank you so much for your patience and